Hi friends, I'm Phil, the Barista Coffee Dude with baristacoffeelife.com. Welcome to my garage today. And you may see my dog walking around. He kind of keeps me company whenever I'm out and about out here. And what I wanted to walk through today is a coffee cupping. So what I've done is I've set up sort of what the spread would look like. Now, what is a coffee cupping? Cupping is a quality control measure. Basically, it is the industry's way to gauge the scoring of a coffee, like as it relates to the quality or if the coffee can qualify as specialty coffee. One of the processes to get to that point is cupping. Now, the thing with cupping, it's actually sort of a negative. You look for defects is sort of what you're going for. So with that said, the coffee I'm using, it's been graciously provided by Copper Canyon Coffee Roasters. A friend of mine owns the company and he loaned out some of the equipment as well. So I wanted to give a shout out to him. Now the coffee that he's given to me today to be able to demonstrate for this, he has already roasted it. He's already cupped it. He's already gone through that filtration process. So more or less what I'm going to be doing today is just showing you how the process works. And then when you do this on your own, you'll at least have a heads up of how to look educated when it comes to it, basically, when you're doing it with other people in like a roastery setting or a cafe setting or whatever. So let's go ahead and get down to it. The cups I'm using, they are right around 7 ounces. The official ratio that you want to do is for every 1 gram of water, it's 1.63 grams of coffee. So how that translates, basically it's 12 grams of coffee in about a 7 ounce cup. Now, the setup I have is this one has hot water in it, and the idea with that is it's something to keep your spoons warm with, and then you also rinse the spoons between each of these samples that you're doing. This empty one here, that's for the coffee grounds. After we add the water and it brews, we scrape the grounds off and then we just discard them in here. Now, you're also going to need a timer, which I have. We're shooting for about 3 minutes, 30 seconds. I have a scale, obviously, to weigh the coffee as I'm putting it in, and then hot water. So when you actually look at the spread, you sort of want to, this is the official one. Rarely in like a roastery setting are you actually going to have 5 cups. The dishes add up like crazy. So in all honesty, usually 2 or like 3 at the max. If a coffee is sort of like on the edge, you can't quite pinpoint what you're going for, then 5. So the way you kind of want to think about it is left to right, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So anything we do, like whether it's adding water or tasting it for the first time or whatever, it's going to be going in that 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 pattern. So I'm not going to waste any more time just talking about the setup. I'm going to go ahead and add the water and just kind of keep talking as it's brewing. So we'll want to start the timer, go for about 3.5 minutes. Now, when I add the water, I'm going to want to add it on the edge and get a whirlpool kind of going. And the crazy thing with cupping, there are a whole bunch of different standards of actually how to do it. What I mean by that is sort of details. Like, for instance, if you're cupping in a group, you're not supposed to be talking. How you're pouring the water, it's supposed to go in this whirlpool fashion. When you move through a table, I want to say you move to the left. You don't actually want to disturb the coffee. You don't want to move the table. You want to actually just like let it brew. And there's stuff out there. I can throw something together for you guys and put together sort of like a rough guide for how some of that works. And then for those of you who are interested, maybe we can do like a PDF and have you download it, something like that. So what we're doing while it's brewing, actually before you add water, you want to smell the coffee and like get the fragrance of it. You also don't want to be wearing cologne or like heavy deodorants or like patchouli oil, stuff like that. You want to be able to actually smell the coffee and not smell the person next to you or yourself if you smell that or good. So as the coffee is brewing, we also want to go ahead and get that wet aroma, like that, the fragrance of what it tastes or what it smells like when the water is actually added. And the tip. Turn your hat backwards so you don't do what just happened. And then also when you're smelling, you don't just want to you actually want to sniff it sort of like a dog would. And that sort of allows the olfactory, your smell sense, to be able to pick up kind of different characteristics of it and heightened sense of it. So sniff like a dog, don't sniff like a human. And we are at 2.5 minutes. Now what we have here is the crust, is what that's called, all the coffee grounds on top. A couple things you want to be looking for regarding the crust. If you add the water and say in 2 minutes of brewing, it all sinks. That typically tells you one of two things. Either someone bumped the table, disturbed the grounds, and they sank, or the other thing it can tell you is that it's a very light roast. And lighter roasts are more dense, which means they're going to want to sink. So that's kind of a visual indication. Doesn't necessarily mean anything is good or bad if it's a light roast. A lot of times with cupping, you're actually going to be cupping a light roast. So it's not uncommon to actually see those coffee grounds sink to the bottom of the cup. So it doesn't necessarily mean anything either way. It's just kind of like an observation. And that's a lot of what cupping is. You're just observing how it smells, how it tastes. You're observing differences between each of the 5 samples. If, say, this one tastes metallic, the other 4 are fine, then that might just kind of throw up a red flag. Is the whole batch that I'm sampling, is that bad? Is this a defect of coffee? Or was this just kind of a one-off? Or did I brew it incorrectly? So it can kind of be a yellow flag, hey, maybe I need to do a second cupping of this to get a true gauge of what the coffee actually tastes like. So here we are, we're a little bit past 3.5 minutes. Now what I'm going to do is called breaking the crust. I'm going to take the back of the spoon and push the coffee grounds back. There's trapped aromas underneath that are going to emanate up into the atmosphere. And then same thing, I'm just going to sniff it like a dog and then dip my spoon in between each of the samples so I don't contaminate them from one to the next. If you want, you can smell the spoon too, because there are aromas on that. All right, so we broke the crust on them, and then we're just going to use the 2 spoons, and we're going to scoop the edge of the dish. And I'm not skimming a lot of water off. I'm basically just getting a little bit of the coffee, but there's not a lot of actual liqueur that's in there. And that's kind of a key thing because you want to be able to sample the coffee. And if you spoon it all out of there when you're scraping the crust, then you're not going to get as good of a sample or as much. All right, so they're all scraped. And what we're going to do from here is make sure our spoon is clean and just add a little bit of coffee to the spoon. And then you're going to slurp it exactly like you do with wine. So what I'm trying to do is get my entire mouth coated with the coffee, everything from my soft palate and hard palate, my tongue, back of my throat, because all of those areas sort of have, they don't all have taste buds or sensory areas, but you just wanted to get that full effect in your mouth. So I tasted that first one, dip the spoon in between, and then go to the second. That one's hot. Really hot. So that's another thing. I generally wait a few minutes because the video's going. I went ahead and jumped right in, but that one burned. All right, so as I kind of went through that first round, I got There are definitely some bitters. This is a coffee from Mexico, so I'm getting those earthy characteristics, sort of like a woody sort of going on. There's definitely a little bit of like a citric acidity that's running through it. So my first impression is sort of that acidity that's going. The mouthfeel, it is a little creamy and a little buttery, but honestly I can't taste a whole lot of it. So in a nutshell, that's all cupping is. What I'm gonna do is, I'll go ahead and kill the video because you have the idea. I'm gonna let it set for about 3 minutes or so. I'm gonna do a second round, and then once it hits room temperature, then that's, honestly, that for me, that's where I really try and hone in on a coffee. If it tastes good at room temperature, it's probably gonna be a fantastic coffee when it comes to like actually roasting it or serving it to your customer base or whatnot. And then one other thing, just briefly, I wanted to touch on with cupping. Typically, it's not something that a cafe owner will do. Typically, cupping is something that is done either at the farm, by the importer, or by the roaster. This is kind of an opinion of mine, but I don't see a lot of value in like a barista behind the counter doing a whole bunch of cuppings of the coffees, because the public that you're serving it to in that setting, they're not going to be drinking it as a cupped coffee. They're going to be drinking it as a like real cup of coffee, or like a brewed Chemex or V60 or like Curtis Gold Cup or whatever it is. So I'm of the opinion that however you are serving the coffee, like in that bar setting, that's how you should actually be tasting it and cupping it for yourself. So that way you know what your customer base is tasting. For people in like a farm setting or an importing setting or a roasting setting, yeah, they definitely need to be doing the cuppings. And when I was doing roastings, I was doing easily 24 cuppings a week. It is insane. A lot of dishes, a lot of fun though. But yeah, that's sort of one of my pet peeves when it comes to cupping, is when I see barista and cafe owners like being religious about doing that, which is awesome for themselves. But if you're doing that with a customer base in mind that's drinking a 12-ounce cup of coffee, to me that does make a lot of sense. So I'd love to hear your feedback on that. I see both sides of it, but at least now you know how to do a cupping. And when you walk into a setting, you can have a level of education on how to actually run through the process. There's a lot more details involved with it, and I'll try and hit some of those up in a document for you guys. And anyway, don't not cup because you're in a cafe setting. By all means do it. If you don't have like official cups, grab like some Gibraltar cups, grab whatever you have. I've seen people cupping out of 12-ounce coffee mugs. Like, use what you got. If you don't have like a coffee cupping spoon that's coated with silver, use what you got. So anyway, just have some fun with it. Peace out, guys. Thanks for tuning in.